Good afternoon, good morning, good evening from wherever you're joining in, ladies and gentlemen. I bring greetings. I hope we're having a very interesting day. You're welcome once again to this esteemed Business Law Weekly session. I'm honored to stand, or I would say sit before you as your moderator for today's discussion, navigating the intricate terrain of corporate governance. I'm privileged to serve as the Secretary to the Corporate Governance and Compliance Committee of the Nigerian Bar Association, section on business law, and we are having the 33rd session or episode of the Business Law Weekly series, and it's been an incredible journey. So I just want to welcome each and every one of you joining in from wherever you're joining in, wherever you are. I can see about 26 attendees and counting and increasing, and our guests and our panelists are already here. So I just want to say a very big thank you. Allow me to give you a brief context before we delve into the heart of our conversation. Today's discussion holds very, very particular significance. We are going to be talking about enhancing corporate governance in the digital era, and it's going to hold for a little bit over an hour. The goal is to keep it within an hour, and that's going to be inclusive of the panel discussion as well as a question and answer session. So please feel free to put your comments in the comment section. Feel free to send us a message if you have a question to either of the panelists. Today's discussion holds very particular significance as it marks our continuation of our commitment to exploring the intersection of law and business, of course, in our ever-evolving legal landscape. The Business Law Weekly series has literally been a beacon of knowledge and collaboration, and I'm excited to guide our esteemed panelists and all of you through a highly nuanced conversation on the critical theme of digital governance. Our two distinguished panelists bring a lot of experience and wealth of experience to the table. First, we have Chideraike Okonkwo, who is the head of innovation at the Nigerian Data Protection Commission, definitely a key figure in shaping the regulatory landscape in the dynamic realm of data protection. And also joining us is Buki Ogunshaki, who is the partner and head Satoshi thinker at BBO Solicitors, a seasoned emerging tech lawyer with 2 decades of experience. I wouldn't necessarily call that emerging, but yes, 2 decades of experience in strategy, project management, and a wealth of knowledge in the Web3 space. So as we navigate the next hour, we definitely are looking forward towards unraveling insights, exploring challenges, and of course, seeking solutions that help to elevate corporate governance in the digital era. Without further ado, we would embark on this, but I cannot do this without, first of all, welcome my highly esteemed chairperson, the one and only Ayatollah Jagun, who I've had the privilege of working with as secretary to the committee over the past 1 or 2 years now, and it's been an incredible journey and experience. Please, if you can put some digital comments in the comment section as we make welcome our chair, for just some very short remarks before we go and dive deeply into the panel session. Thank you so much, and it's good to have you here, ma'am.
Rosamond, you are wonderful. Thank you so much, and it's so good to be part of this conversation. Ever emerging, ever changing conversation. So I really am so looking forward to the next hour. I would like to welcome my esteemed learned colleagues and our distinguished speakers as well. It's so funny. People have been saying to me, this is a funnel, or is it called a flannel? Because it's an all-female lineup. And then I thought, oh, I wonder, it gave me a different kind of outlook, talking about diversity and inclusion, on how manels kind of emerge. But honestly, these women are both speakers we have here. We're very delighted to have you, are both authorities in their field, and I am so looking forward to hearing from them today. I'm truly honored to be your host today. And I just want to say just a few things, that in an age where technology and digital transformation are driving unprecedented change in the business world, the importance of having strong corporate governance, a strong corporate governance foundation upon which we're building the trust, the transparency, and ethical behavior is key, in ensuring that, our organizations continue to be sustainable in this kind of rapidly evolving landscape. So really, again, delighted to hear from our distinguished experts and thought leaders in this field of digital governance, and looking forward to hearing their insights and best practices and strategies to help us navigate the complexities of this digital era. You know, what's interesting is we got a note at my company from Chief Technology Officer saying, from now on, nobody's supposed to use AI tools like ChatGPT, like Fireflies. I'm mentioning these because we use them to try and help us work more efficiently. But we're told, you know, while they do an audit on how safe they are to use from a data privacy, data protection point of view, we are not to use them, and then come up with policies that will guide us in how we use them eventually. And also what we can or cannot use, we're not allowed to use them. So this webinar is coming at a very timely point in even our use of technology as a company. So today, I know we're going to explore topics such as data privacy, cybersecurity, compliance. Yeah, compliance is key, right? And then, you know, the role of AI and blockchain in governance. And like I said, I really would encourage everybody on the call to actively participate, ask questions through the chat, engage in discussions through the chat and through the Q&A. And let's all learn from one another and collectively advance our understanding of corporate governance beyond the analog into the digital era. So without further ado, let's dive into this journey of exploration and learning. Thank you. Thanks, Rosamond.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that short but deeply insightful comments. Thank you. And indeed, we are quite in a very interesting time. And you look at the evolution of how governance has worked, you realize that you cannot but realize that you are playing in a highly centralized and highly digital landscape, whatever size of business you run. So it's quite an incredible thing that we are having this discussion about navigating corporate governance in the digital era. So thank you very much, my chair. It's always exciting hear from you. So very quickly, I'm going to read a very short bio of our speakers, as I should, because it's important for us to know where they're coming from. So as they begin to discuss, of course, we definitely get more insight as to some of the things that they will be talking about. So I'll be very brief. We'll do this in 2 minutes maximum. So I would start with the profile of Olubukola, or also known as Buki Ogunshakin, who is the principal and head Satoshi thinker at BDO Solicitors. She's an emerging tech lawyer that primarily works with clients in emerging technology areas such as DLT, crypto, blockchain, artificial intelligence, the metaverse, Internet of Things, tokenization, as well as cybersecurity and data privacy. Interesting. Buki is highly sought after by our clients due to 20 years experience in strategy and project management. She's currently a Web3 legal consultant with Interstellar Inc. and volunteers as a director of strategy at E4E. She holds a bachelor's in law from Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, and has an MSc in project management from St. Mary's University, Minnesota, and also holds an NFT talent certificate in Frankfurt School of Finance and Management. She's a smart contract research fellow and a Cleros Decentralized Justice Fellow. She's also a certified NFT expert from the Blockchain Council and a certified international privacy professional Europe, CIPP/E, as we all know, and it's called. She's a member of the Nigerian Bar Association and the International Association of Privacy Professionals and the Blockchain Nigeria User Group, BNUG, and she's married with 5 children. If you can welcome her in the comment section by just saying you're welcome. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
And we'll also be reading the profile of Clara Okonkwo, who is the protection and privacy trainer and speaker with a decade experience in private and public legal practice. Claire Chidera heads the innovation unit at the Nigerian Data Protection Commission and was part of the working group that drafted the Nigerian Data Protection Bill, which is now the Data Protection Act 2023, as well as the NDPC Strategic Roadmap and Action Plan SRAP 2023 to 2027. As a regulator at the NDPC, startups, civil society organizations, and non-governmental organizations, NGOs, and develops guidance to ensure compliance with data protection rules and regulations. No ability to explain complex data protection and privacy principles with simple and relatable illustrations. Chidera has delivered several trainings and conference presentations on data protection and privacy for private and public organization conferences globally. And she's mom to two beautiful children and enjoys traveling and networking. And I would just definitely love to move on, but I would not do that without recognizing our indefatigable chairman, Dr. Adiri Adefolu, as the SBL chairman. And we are very, very grateful for this innovation that you've done. And we are really, really excited to have you. And of course, in absentia, he extends his very, very warm greetings to everyone. So thank you once again. And we're about to move directly to our session. So as we definitely all know, we have an incredible panel, I would say, to do this in 40 minutes. To just, ask questions and basically get to understand the essence or the nuance of our conversation today, which is centered around ensuring corporate governance practices in the digital atmosphere. So my first question is definitely going to be thrown to Adeshaki, Buki Adeshaki, yes. And I would definitely love to just hear you. Please just confirm if you can hear me. I would love to see you as well. Let me know if you're able to see me, you're able to hear me. All right, fantastic. So I can see you right now. So definitely you'll be spotlighted soon. So I'm about to shoot the questions at you, right? It's not just going to be a Q&A, it's also going to be interactive. So please, let's interact also in the comments. I would love to definitely see more comments in the comment section. So my first question basically is to you, and we're going to be talking a little bit about legal considerations in digital governance. And from your profile, you have such a wealth of experience. 2 decades is not a joke, and you've navigated legal in terms of dealing with NFTs, blockchain, cryptocurrency. In your experience, right, how do legal considerations really intersect with the adoption of digital tools, especially when it comes to the practice of corporate governance? What's your experience like? Can you share some of your experience and how you've seen these two, areas of law or practice really together to ensure that there's some sort of balance in it? So it'd be great to hear your insights on that. And thank you once again for doing this with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rosemond. Please confirm if you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Okay, awesome. I would like to say a very big thank you to the Nigerian Bar Association, SBL, for having me here today. Thank you so much, our host, Mrs. Jago. It's awesome to be here. My fellow speakers, Chidera, and of course, Rosemond, for being
just to be sure if it's not my network. I think, can someone confirm that you can hear or see this, the
I think
just to be sure.
I practice the metaverse, NFTs. Can you hear me?
You froze for a bit, but yeah, it's okay now.
Okay, maybe I should change my net. I will change my network after this.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah, so I was saying I deal primarily in the space of crypto, blockchain, emerging tech, artificial intelligence, NFTs, and the like the metaverse. I also consult with a blockchain infrastructure building organization. And we find that when it comes to digital tools for corporate governance, there are a number of things we need to consider. Of course, first on the list, I would say, is data privacy, because it's extremely important now, going ahead with the amount of data that is out there, the amount of data sets, the amount of data use, and data collection generally. Data privacy is very important. And so we need to look at the frameworks that we need to design for our organizations when it comes to keeping data secure and data private. And with the new nuances in corporate governance of having virtual meetings, digital certificates and digital information that is generally going out, we need to make sure that disclosure, we look very closely at disclosure and also access to information as well. And so we need to look at all the clauses and sections in the NDPA and the general data privacy regulations as well when it comes to handling of data. And so digital tools and technologies collect and store all of this information So organizations need to protect this data and ensure that those that have access to it are the proper parties, and the dissemination of the information is also very carefully looked at. You need to consider security as well. So that's cybersecurity frameworks within our organizations. We need to look very closely at software and work with professionals within the field, either outsourced or internally within the organization. Another aspect, I believe, is intellectual property. When we're using different software,
I'm thinking that we lost her again. Let me see.
how do we make for, or that we need to have for those software is in place. So generally, we need to look a lot at intellectual property of the software that we're using, the permissions that we have to use certain softwares, and the agreements as well that we have with third parties or organizations that are providing, these cloud services and these external services to us. Any form of digital or software technology that we're making use of, we need to look at very carefully. We've been talking about artificial intelligence a lot nowadays. So AI systems that we're using, we need to look at the terms of use for such AI systems, or the terms and conditions. If we're signing into subscriptions, we need to make sure that those contracts are properly looked at, especially when there's a lot of debates now on copyright, of information that is going into these systems and the data sets that are actually being accessed. So I think those are some of the things: data privacy, security, cybersecurity as well. We need to look at the contracts, and of course, compliance is also very important. So complying with cybersecurity regulations, the regular Companies and Allied Matters Act, Business Facilitation Act as well. And I think that right now, because we're looking at the digital era, we need to look at regulations from other jurisdictions as well. I mentioned GDPR earlier, CCPA in the US. We need to look at the Chinese data privacy rules as well. So it's no longer the way, business as usual, the way we used to have it before, where you're only studying legislation that comes from your own jurisdiction. You actually need to look out into other jurisdictions, because you have many parties that are coming from other territories, and their jurisdictions are, taking precedence and preeminence over the data that their citizens are involved in or using. So we need to look at other jurisdictions as well. So complying with those jurisdictions need to be part of our compliance systems. And we find that many of the Nigerian organizations actually do not take foreign legislation into consideration. With those of us that are dealing in the metaverse and NFTs, we need to look at US SEC regulations. We need to look at regulations from other regions, even UAE, Singapore, Japan, and some other areas. So we find that it's a lot more reading and a lot more being involved with systems in other jurisdictions as well. And with decentralized governance, we find that we are beginning to create, but I think we'll go into that later. I don't want to talk about that now. With decentralized governance, you are going into new territory. We are creating, the world is now a flat surface. It's one. Everybody is in the metaverse, is coming from different, parts of the world. So you need to look at all those moving parts as well. So I think those are just some of the things we need to consider while adopting these new digital tools as we go forward into the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. As you're speaking, I could not help but, hear you talk about so many things. You mentioned decentralized governance, you mentioned ICT, you mentioned NFTs. And the truth is that, for the typical traditional lawyer, right, when you hear these terms, you're like, I'm not in tech. Like, why is happening, right? So I wanted to, because you're a lawyer, so you speak our language, right? And then you've gotten yourself to a point where you're also able to speak the digital language that many I would say very traditional lawyers may not know a lot or have a lot of knowledge about, right? So I want you to share with us before I go to Chidera is your experience, especially when it comes to how you've been able to practice. Because one of the things that I really want you to talk about is examples of legal challenges, right? Or opportunities that organizations usually have to encounter in the pursuit of enhanced digital governance. Because I think that's a tapestry that really runs through the thread of any form of organization that is literally trying to leverage on these tools that we mentioned, these artificial intelligence tools and all that. So, as a practicing lawyer, right, and of course, somebody that you basically deal with digital governance in itself, can you share some examples of some of the challenges you faced and opportunities too, that you've been able to spot and take advantage of in the course of practicing corporate governance in that very unique field? If you could share with us, would be great.
Rosemond, you have to take that again. I think you lost me for like 30 seconds.
Oh my. Okay, so what I'm saying is now, I first of all talked about the fact that you seem to play a very unique world. You are playing in the world of a lawyer, and you're also playing in a very digital, highly digitally nuanced world. So my question to you is, what are some of your experiences that you faced, especially in trying to enforce or implement some of these regulations that you are used to? And if you could also share with us, how these challenges or these opportunities come across and how you've been able to spot those opportunities. What are some of the opportunities that are in that space for lawyers or people who are trying to play, of course, in the governance aspect of things?
Yeah.
And what are some of the things that, you've experienced, in your own practice, your own unique practice? Yeah. I hope you get that question.
Yes, I do.
So I said it to
I need like a long, very long sheet, start writing things, but let me just mention a few. I think, for instance, when we're talking of blockchain, data privacy is actually new, but blockchain is even much newer, if I can use that phrase. So when it comes to blockchain, we know that blockchain is immutable. Whatever information you place on the blockchain is
I'm thinking network. I don't know. Can anyone hear me?
The whole idea of data privacy is that.
Sorry, so you seem to be breaking a bit.
Okay.
I don't know, but just go ahead. But maybe after when I move to the next question.
Yes, when you move to the next question, I will change my network.
Yeah, sure.
I can see that the one I'm on is a bit okay. So when it comes to blockchain technology, information you place on the blockchain is permanent. It's immutable. It's not easily changeable. And then when you're talking of data privacy regulation, rights of data subjects like rights to deletion or erasure. How do you delete information that has been placed on the blockchain that is permanent? So that's kind of like a challenge right there. You're trying to marry blockchain technology with data privacy regulations and you are not able to. So we find we need to start creating hybrid models of platforms or organizations that we're working with. So parts of the platform will be on-chain, and then parts of the platform will be off-chain, where you are able to delete some of the data. That's just, an example of, trying to marry data privacy regulations with the blockchain. Then also comes the issue of security leakages. We've heard there are so many more hacks. So organizations need to properly create access controls in cybersecurity for organizations, because the more sophisticated the technology, the more sophisticated the hacks are. So you have to, try to be one step ahead of the game at each point in time. So as a legal practitioner in the field, you need to keep abreast with what's happening with cybersecurity regulations, as well as cybersecurity frameworks, so that you're able to ensure that your clientele are up to date with the technology that they need to have to protect that information. Also, you have to talk about cost as well. Blockchain, crypto, all of these new technologies, they cost more than the regular tech. And even when we're talking of data privacy technology and technologies, privacy enhancing tools, you find that when you go to third parties or organizations that are outsourcing this, it actually does cost a lot. So there's increased cost with trying to protect the data that you're collecting, especially for those that are collecting massive amounts of data from, data subjects. So you're talking about access control. You have to have the expertise as yourself as a legal practitioner to know the technology itself, the different stacks of the technology that are available, how you are able to retain data within the particular frameworks that are available, and you are trying to do all of this at the same time as balancing jurisdictions and landscapes and conflicting regulations as well. But let's not focus on the challenges. I think I would like to focus on the opportunities, and the opportunities are bound with digitalizing corporate governance. There is efficiency. You are able to send out information, disseminate information faster. You are able to do it more efficiently. You are able to, with AI now, not even just AI, regular algorithms automate tasks. You are streamlining your workflows, improving communication because you are able to communicate to them, more easily. I think it also enhances transparency as well, because when we're talking of transparency and accountability for corporate governance, people are able to have access. They can track your progress. They can track changes that are happening, within the processes as well. And even though there's increased cost with software, there's reduced cost with things like travel, renting a venue for an annual general meeting, all of those logistics, there's reduced cost with some of those when we talk about virtual meetings. But then I think where it is going, even though for many of us in Nigeria it's not there yet, I think for those of us in Web3, we're seeing innovations go in the space of having digital ledgers for your information and where it's stored. We're having hybrid systems. So some systems are going blockchain technology fully.
I think she'll be back. I think it's work again. Okay.
And some of it is off the blockchain. The annual general meetings in the metaverse, extended reality for experiences for people. And there was this particular situation of a construction company that was having a board meeting, and all the board members, were made to wear virtual reality sets to inspect one of their construction sites. So the construction site was the digital twin of the construction site was built in the metaverse. And so they were able to, inspect the venue virtually. And that give them a sense of, being physically in the space. So as a board member, you're actually experiencing what your organization is doing almost in real time, because it actually does feel very real if you are, in the virtual space. So we're seeing some of these innovations, and I think that's the trend that is going to take. Organizations who are welcoming such innovations are going to begin to prosper, in the metaverse and in these new areas. So you have to balance it out. So you balance the challenges with risk committees of both.
I think we lost her again. I think he's back.
Opportunities that are available within this are more governed, generally better. So I think those are just my.
All right. So you would do us a favor and switch your network, because we lost you like thrice, but at least you come back a little bit earlier. So I'll be moving. Yeah, but thank you very much for that insight. It's to know that, we have tools that are available to enhance, corporate governance from a very unique perspective. I love the fact that you mentioned the fact that, you have digital ledgers now, and you're able to literally use algorithms to your tracking and of course your communications and your searches. So although it seems highly technical, it's very doable and it's already being done already. So it's good that we catch up to the trend, because that's exactly where we're going. All right, thank you very much, Buki. That was very insightful, and I'm looking forward to having another set of questions sent to you again. But I'm going to be moving now to our one and only head of innovation for Nigerian Data Protection Commission, none other but Chidera. And I just want you to confirm if you can hear me, you can see me, so that I can shoot the questions right back at you, and then we can continue.
Okay, hi Rosemond, I can hear you and I can see you, and I've been following the conversation and it's very, very exciting.
Awesome. Thank you very much for being here. So straight at you, right? This is 1:30, and I've promised our viewers that we are not going to go more than an hour, but I recognize the presence of my chair who is here. I saw him join us. So thank you very much for being here. So Chidera, over to you. You've heard Buki talk about so many things, right? And I really want to come from this data protection aspect. Buki mentioned something very important, that it's not just enough for you to really have an understanding of Nigerian regulations. There's such a cross interpolation between Nigerian laws and of course other laws, because like she mentioned, the GDPR basically deals with those that process their data and out and in and all that. So my question, right, to you is, in this digital era, right, how do you see data governance actually contributing to corporate governance in itself? What's the relationship really? How do you see, data governance also contributing to enhanced corporate governance and compliance for different kinds of organizations? It would be great to, hear your thoughts about this too.
Okay.
Thank you. That's my question.
All right. Yeah. So the relationship between the two of them is that one is, essential to the other. When we talk about data governance, we're talking about, it's more like you're looking at data protection and privacy, but you're looking at it from a bird's eye view of an organization. So it's not just something you're doing within a unit or within a department. It's something that starts from the board, that goes all the way down to management and extends even to your stakeholders. So everyone is involved and there's a strategy at every point. And so for an organization, your data governance needs to be robust. You need to be ensuring that data security is in check. You need to be thinking about things like transparency and accountability. In very large organization settings, you find that some of the challenges, for instance, are, simple things like effective communication. So people are not, sending down messages to those who need it. For instance, you have a DPO who cannot report directly to senior management. You have senior management who maybe do not really understand what's happening, with the lower level staff and with the other stakeholders. Or it could just be that, because, with technological advancements, they are not as tech savvy as they should be, and they don't have access to resources, not just in terms of the funds, but in terms of the personnel to get the kind of advice, that they need going about their mission and vision and values and all of that. And so the relationship between both is that you can't say you have an effective corporate governance structure and you're not taking into consideration your data governance. You don't have a strategy for that. You're not appointing the right officers. You're not putting in place the right checks. You're not, you have policies, but those policies are not being communicated. You have procedures, but, it gets to a certain level and people feel like, well, I'm up here and I don't really need to deal with that. You guys deal with it and just have a report. Or typically something that we see a lot of at the commission, we have a DPO sitting in low-level management, for instance, and he's identified an issue and he has done what he's supposed to do. And now he needs to escalate this issue, bring it to the attention of the board of directors, and he doesn't have access to them. Or he reports it to his boss, who has to report to another boss, who has to report to the boss. And by the time something actually goes wrong, You know, you find everyone sitting in the conference room and saying, yes, we had policies, we had procedures, it's documented. We even did ISO 27001, we did all our cybersecurity this, we have a CISO. You know, they bring in all these people and they're sitting at the head of the table and they really look like they know what they are doing. But in reality, I think the real challenge is there's no effective communication. The processes are documented, but they are not being communicated, you know, and a host of other relationships. So really, data governance is not just about having the structure. It's not just about appointing the right people. You know, it's about the interplay between all of these things. And I'm hoping that we can go into it, you know, in more detail as we continue to discuss.
Yeah, thank you. You've highlighted a very critical aspect, which is communication, and that definitely, you know, piggybacks off what I think my next question will be, because you know, there's such you can't talk about corporate governance without talking about issues as regards lines of communication and stakeholder relationships, be it triangular or you know, horizontal or vertical, in either way, right? So I would love to know, because, you know, based on this conversation, my next question to you will be, how can boards effectively oversee and navigate, right, the integration of emerging technologies in corporate governance structures? Because like what Vicky had mentioned, there are several ways to go about it, but based on some of the experiences and some of the challenges you've also observed or even highlighted, what's the role of the board in really ensuring that this is done seamlessly, right, in such a way that, you know, they can be more impactful and more sustainable in the long run? I hope you got my question. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay,
I got
awesome.
your question.
Okay.
So Buki mentioned something very interesting. She mentioned a lot of interesting things, actually. And what stood out for me is truly the landscape has changed because of the introduction of technological advances. And it's no longer business as usual. So if you now have an organization, for instance, that is leveraging on technological advances, I think, you know, having a robust data protection and privacy compliance, framework is necessary. But I would like to highlight some important aspects without going into everything in detail. The first one that comes to mind is DPIAs, that's Data Protection Impact Assessment. These are very important. It's seen as a proactive approach, and it also shows accountability on the part of the organization. So if you have an organization that is leveraging on innovative technologies, I think it's wise, apart from being a legal requirement, under the NBPA, I think it's also wise to have a data protection impact assessment. So basically what you're looking at is you're carrying out a sort of risk assessment of this innovative technology that you are about to introduce. You want to know how intrusive is it into people's privacy? What are the potential privacy concerns? Should we be bothered about, not just data breaches, but privacy rights violations? Should we be bothered about, accusations of deceptive technology, accusations of, not being transparent, So these are things that need to be looked at from a risk assessment or risk management perspective. That's number one. Number two is you can't have that kind of organization without having the technical know-how. And I mean, I think that this is very important, It's not just enough to say, I'm certified in this, I'm certified in that. You all agree with me that certification does not, equal, is it proficiency? But basically the fact that you have a certification is a good starting point, but you need to know how to apply this knowledge. And if the knowledge is not even available, there needs to be a way for, decision makers to actually have access to technical resources, so they can have access to technical advisors. They should ideally be part of trainings. I can't count the number of times we've had trainings and, you find that they just send in everybody else, but the decision makers are not there. I think it's a huge mistake, and it really undercuts everything you're doing, because the most effective way to drive this point home is to set the right tone at the top. So there's nothing more effective than having a training. For instance, you're doing some capacity building endeavor, and you have the CEO, you have the board of directors, you have those at the helm of affairs actually involved in the training, actually understanding, what's involved, as opposed to spending so much money to hire some tech bro or tech guru, and then they're saying things and you don't really understand, So it's very important to set the tone at the top. And then also something that a lot of organizations do not do, but a few have done, in the last 1 year at the commission, we've actually seen organizations consult with us to say, for instance, we're a large financial institution, we do pension, we do regular banking, we do asset management, we do all of these things, and now we want to, integrate everything on a single platform. We're going to, have to deal with things like cloud processing. We're going to have to leverage on a lot of, there'll be data, cross-border data transfers, just highlighting the issues and telling us things like, okay, we've conducted our DPI, these are the risks we've identified, we've treated this one, we've transferred this one, we tried to avoid this one, but there's this particular one we're still dealing with. So what would you advise? So for that kind of organization, our belief at the commission is we're not trying to stifle innovation. We want people to be innovative. There wouldn't be an office for innovation if we didn't, value that. But at the same time, we want them to be able to do it in such a way that they are making sure that they are consulting the regulator to know what blind spots they may be, and to find solutions to those problems. And sometimes, in all honesty, there doesn't seem to be an immediate solution. Sometimes we have to learn, from mistakes. But the advantage that these kind of organizations have over those who do not even consult with the regulator is that when something goes wrong, the burden is then on them to prove that we conducted a DPI, we did our due diligence, we checked with our third-party we checked with our third-party processors and all our stakeholders. We did this, we did that, blah blah blah. It was documented, but it gives more credibility to say the regulator was involved in the process. We went through the thought process together, So it's more of a win-win, and I think this is something that more organizations need to take advantage of.
Thank you. Two things stand out for me. Are you done? Sorry, I just want to be sure.
Yes, I'm done.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't short. Two things stand out for me. Set the tone at top, which is number one. And of course, number two, have a collaborative process. The regulators are not there to stifle innovation. They're there to encourage it, but of course, should be done within an acceptable framework. So thank you. Thank you for that. And of course, I love the way this conversation is going, because exactly what we are talking about is actually how you are able to use technology to be able to enhance corporate governance, because that's the central theme of this conversation. So my next question is going to go back to Buki. I'm quite curious, and I would really love us to really be as practical as possible. Is, you've talked about the fact that you need to set the tone at the top, and sometimes those at the top are usually the least to catch up with the fast going trend of technology, really, right? It's like you're trying to put two things together and trying to make them sit together, but you realize that sometimes you have some challenges, right? So I would love to ask you, Buki, how can, I want to be sure you can hear first of all, so that, okay, yes, I think you can. Awesome. Yeah, I can see you. Okay, so like the question I'll be shooting right back at you now is, from a practical lens, how can organizations really strategically integrate technology into their governance structures when it comes to having to improve decision-making processes? Because it's really important, right? How can we fuse both together, technology into governance structures to improve decision-making processes, based on your experience and some of the things that, those on this call can definitely benefit from the experience. It'd be great to hear that. Thank you.
Yes. I hope it doesn't cut me off now. If it does, then maybe I go off video.
No problem.
So yes, Probably the first that I would think of is automating tasks. Many of the tasks that previously we needed to do, in the traditional methods, many now are quite automated. And so if we can afford automation technologies, artificial technologies that we can infuse into our tasks, I think that does make corporate governance quite easy. Also, we've mentioned in this meeting about improving communication, and Chidera mentioned collaboration between governance stakeholders. I think decision-making and the use of technology for that, collaboration tools like discussion groups, online forums, even within the portals for some specific kinds of technology, you are able to get feedback. So a lot of data analytics, can be retrieved via all these methods. You can ask for polls, you can do surveys. So many of the technologies actually have quite some innovative ways of communicating with stakeholders and even getting their feedback, not just even communicating with them. So communication is now easier both ways. So you sending to them and them, you also retrieving from them or them also contacting you as well. So I think we can use technology to do a lot of that. It also can be used to improve transparency and accountability. So like I mentioned earlier, many of the governance processes that you have, you can make them more transparent. A lot of information can be posted on websites. Information can also be posted on the board portals as well. So they have all those documents, as at their fingertips. But of course, with the ease of getting this information, you now need to make sure that the information is secure and, the portals or the software that you're using is actually quite secure. So, you can identify trends, you can monitor risks. Even when you have outlined all your risks, you've done all your assessments or your audits, there are ways of monitoring and evaluating all these processes. Performance evaluations can be done digitally as well. There's software that you can use for that. I mentioned earlier about using artificial intelligence to, generate insights, even the recommendations that we get from recommendation committees, even some from the shareholders, all of this could be created in a data format where you are able to access, those recommendations. And it's not even just getting the recommendations. You can have artificial intelligence actually sort through the data. So the data, like I mentioned earlier, analytics software that actually help you to categorize the data. So you are able to, at the snap of your fingers, you're able to monitor data, you're able to rearrange it. And it gives you, more insight into generally everything that is happening within the organization. And of course, being in the blockchain as well, I would favor blockchain systems because it definitely creates a more transparent and the most important aspect of blockchain is the fact that it's tamper-proof. You are able to store that information and no one is able to tamper with that information, unlike regular traditional data. So I'd say technology is just a powerful tool. I mean, not all governance processes will benefit from technology integration because we seem to, keep saying technology for everything, but not all the governance processes, but those that we identify, that are specific to our organization or the specific client that can benefit from technology, then you just need to research about the right tools that you need to implement and then implement. Also, I wanted to mention something about implementation. For many organizations, they seem to say, oh, this is so expensive. We can't implement this immediately. The cost is just too much. Why not let's, stick to the traditional method? You can actually do it in phases. It doesn't need to be all at once. You could try, just a little bit at a time. And with blockchain technology, we usually tell people to experiment. Many of the organizations are experimenting. We find that a lot of the big tech organizations are experimenting with decentralized governance. They're doing it in phases. So maybe introducing new committees, maybe like a digital, I know Microsoft has a digital transformation committee, that was open to the public and users. You can innovate with certain kinds of phased approaches. Even for the regulators, I know that we have the sandboxes, so they're able to experiment with certain processes and frameworks. So you can actually implement all of these in phased approaches. And then training is also very important, like we mentioned earlier. I know Chidera mentioned that as well. It's very important to train the professionals that we have within our organizations, the boards, the management at the different levels, because this way the board would think would be much different from management, because management is coming from a different point of view, and then the shareholders as well, so we can have it in different clusters as well, as opposed to straight across board the organization. And then we can use different technologies to now monitor this. Like I mentioned earlier, there are softwares, artificial intelligence software systems that you can use to, for instance, sort the data that is imputed from recommendation committees, and then they sort this out, for the organization to be able to now deal with in the different departments, so every department can come in and access the information that is relevant to them. So legal touches on legal, technology touches on technology, risk on risk, and different departments in different ways like that. So I think it's still early days. It's a continuous process, but at least once we have these in place, I think the organization will be well on its way to begin to use these technologies in a more efficient way when it comes to corporate governance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was very insightful, and I love the comments that are coming in now. HS says, I think with everything, it is about proving the concept and doing a cost-benefit analysis that speaks to long-term shareholder value, right? Because when everyone says, "Oh, it's expensive, we can't do that," but when they get to see the benefits, right? The world keeps going forward. We are not going back anytime soon. So the sooner we get used to the fact that, we can't run from these things, because if you stay on one spot, others will evolve and come and hack you because, well, you don't have anything in place, buffer against these radical changes that keep coming. So the concept is about constantly evolving, and then ensuring that, like you said, I love the fact that you talked about the phased approach. You can't do everything at once. It's such a big realm. So you take it in bite-sized pieces and let the big picture be seen, right? And I love the comment from Chidera as well, which of course we are 1 hour, 52 minutes into, 52 minutes into our session, right? We promise that we'll try to wrap this up in an hour, just a little bit above an hour. But I just want to ask one final question before we have the question. So I see there's a question in the comment section, which I'm definitely going to answer. But I just want Chidera to touch on this question for just like a minute, and then Buki, you touch on this question for a minute, then we go straight to the Q&A, and then we can quickly bring this to a close, right? It's so much to talk about, but so little time. We definitely were looking forward towards possibly having another session again, but permit me to just ask this last question, because I think it's critically important in the intersection between governance, corporate governance, and of course data governance. You realize that you're going to face, every organization will face one or two things, and that is cyber security. We're going to be talking about issues that have to do with AML, KYC, things like that, right? And you're going to be dealing with that on a regular. So, given the increase, so this is my question, and I'm going to ask this question to Chidera, my final question before the Q&A, which is, given the increasing importance of cybersecurity in the digital landscape, right? How do you think corporate governance frameworks can be adapted, right, to address these cybersecurity concerns effectively? And maybe you could share some recommendations that you have for organizations that are seeking to integrate cybersecurity into their overall governance strategy. So it would be great to, have your perspective on that, Chidera, if you don't mind. And then same question to Buki, and then we'll taper this up to the Q&A sessions. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm definitely in favor of, that synergy. I do not think that there's any organization that doesn't need to think about cybersecurity challenges, issues, and just think about how, that can protect the organization. I think it's something that it's inalienable. What they say, inalienable from corporate governance. So it needs to be an important element. And cybersecurity is closely related to data security, data protection, although there are some nuances. Without going into the nuances, I think that the key elements, if I were talking about this from a data protection and privacy point of view, I think it would be very similar. And I think that from experience and from even everything that we've said now, which proves to be true, that there needs to be allocation. Okay, there needs to be first an integration with the cybersecurity strategies and the corporate governance strategies. So you cannot be preventing something that is not likely to happen. You can't be, working against something that there's no likelihood for it to happen, or the likelihood is so little that it's inalienable, compared to what it is the organization is doing, in terms of its mission and vision and its values, So that being said, there needs to be adequate allocation of resources in that regard. I can give a personal example of an organization that spends so much money, developing its cybersecurity department. They had all the sophisticated technology. They had intrusion detection. I mean, they had all their firewalls and encryption, and everything was there. So would you say they allocated resources? You would say yes. But there was another resource that they did not take into account, and that's the human resource. So while they were installing all of these systems, they did not take time to actually, pay attention to the training needs of the people who were going to be implementing this system. They didn't make sure that those who were implementing it at the point where it was needed. So you start to ask yourself, what's the point of spending so much money on a sophisticated cybersecurity infrastructure if no one is going to turn on the button that makes it work? Okay, so that's definitely something, that needs to be considered. What else? Yeah, incident response plan. This is very important because of the legal and regulatory compliance requirements. So under the NDPA, there's 72 hours, to report a data breach, right? And this data breach, people usually think a data breach is only localized to issues of data protection. Not really, and to be honest, a data breach can happen anyhow, really. What is essential is that something that should have been protected and kept private is no longer private and protected. So when that happens, amongst all that things, since we're now talking about cybersecurity, there needs to be a well-developed incident response plan. And like I said before, it's not enough to just have a plan. That plan needs to be communicated, and it needs to be routinely practiced. Okay, so you have organizations, it's like a fire drill. You live in a very big house with different exits and hidden doors and all of that. And the person who installs the fire alarm comes and tells you, okay, there's an exit here, there's another one here, but you just stay in one room, you don't move around. And the day there's actually a fire, you can't remember where the exit, that was pointed to you is located. And then what happens? Disaster. So everyone needs to know what the plan is. And then there needs to be some kind of drill, routine drill, to let everybody know that this is what happens in the event of this happening. You can relate it to, reporting a data breach to the commission, for instance. We've had people say, they said we should report within 72 hours. I reported to my Oga, but the Oga did not report to the commission. So was there reporting or was there no reporting? So these are the issues, So that's why I said it's good to develop a response plan. It's better to communicate that plan, but it's even best to make sure that that plan is routinely communicated and practiced within the organization for new staff, for old staff, for whichever stakeholder is involved. If you have third parties involved, all the better. But everybody must be on the same page, because when we start looking at what happens if that is not done, it becomes a bitter war of pointing fingers and trying to assign the blame, but the fine will be the fine and the consequences will be the consequence. So, better to prepare ahead.
Thank you. I when I hear the word fines, I'm like, only our regulators, we definitely know the language of the regulator. Right. So thank you for that. Communication is very important. We have a question, but I would love Buki to just quickly add to that before I move to the Q&A. We're literally an hour, so I want to keep this very, very brief. Thank you, Buki.
Okay, yes. I think for cybersecurity, what we usually tell clients would be the first thing for us would be to do a discovery, because a very common error that organizations make is they see one company implementing certain cybersecurity frameworks, and then they want to replicate the same thing within their organization. It doesn't work that way. The needs of your organization will be quite different. The kind of data that you're handling, the volume of data that you're handling could be quite different, and the type of data that you're handling could be very different. So you need to do discovery, find out what your own organization of the client's current state of cybersecurity is. And I think you need to marry this as well with digital governance. So find out what the process is, kind of do an assessment on what the current status is, and then you can now begin, once you have experts within your organization, or you can outsource for that, now begin to build a roadmap or a plan that you need to execute for cybersecurity within the organization, and then digital governance. So, and there are different kinds of cybersecurity frameworks that are out there. Again, you need to, just as we say in law, it depends on the particular facts of the circumstance. It depends on the organization and the strengths and the weaknesses, and then you can now begin to create that map. And I think that since we're talking about digital governance today, I think every organization needs to develop that digital governance plan, because this is where things are headed. What are the kind of what's the current status with our organization? What are the current tools and frameworks and software that is available for us to implement digital governance within our organization? And then in Web3, we always like talking about roadmaps. You create that roadmap, and that dashboard is created so everyone can see the vision. And then you can now begin to infuse that culture within the entire organization. So whatever framework it is that you're building, you carry along, just like Chidera said, the people within the organization, and then you have the processes and the technology, that goes along with that. And then you kind of just create that roadmap. And you find that once you do that, your digital governance will be, working much more. There'll be a proper audit and reporting process. Your compliance plan will also fit within that, and all your policies and procedures. So I think it's very, important to do that. And of course, I just wanted to mention, a lot of what we are mentioning is mostly for organizations in Web 2. Web 3 organizations actually, fully decentralized organizations is completely different, because everything is encoded into the system. So your system is actually your governance protocol. So all of governance within a Web3 fully decentralized system is actually implemented by code, by smart contracts and codes that have been encoded into the system. And, so you need to create that, you need to engineer your processes, and then the code implement all the rest for you within the organization. Thank you.
Thank you. That's incredible. Thank you very much. I think that was very spot on. So thank you. I'm going to so we have one question, but please, if you still have more questions, obviously we may not be able to take all the questions, but we'll direct them at the speakers, and of course that can be answered after now. But we have one question. I wouldn't know who would want to answer that. So I think it was a result of Buki's question. So possibly she will just answer that in like 30 seconds. So someone says, well done to the presenters. Please, can you suggest any technological platform that one can use to ensure efficient management of governance processes? So let's see if maybe, because I think he's asking for softwares or something that maybe something, just throw something at us, just a little.
We usually don't recommend specific systems. What I would suggest would be to have a cybersecurity assessment done for the organization first. Because like I said, we normally just call out different software. People are like, everybody is using this, or let me use it as well. No, it doesn't work like that. It might not work for you. Just like someone mentioned in the comment section, it's bespoke. You can't use what Bookie is using for what, Rosemond. It might not work like that. So the first thing I would suggest would be to have an assessment done. When the assessment is now done, then you know what your organization needs. And then now, you'll be able to, they will suggest the proper and efficient software systems that will flow with the organization. The organization could be Web3. It could be using a hybrid system. It could be using, permissionless or permissioned. It could be fully traditional and not even have any digital governance whatsoever. So how do we, know which particular software to use? I would say that should be the first step to take. And once you have a professional there, you don't need to worry about software. They will definitely give you different options, that are available to you. Thank you.
I love that answer. I love that answer. Just do a disclaimer, please. I did not tell you to.
It's true.
Right.
Because what they say about cybersecurity is it's not about if, but about when. So every organization needs to be careful. So you can't just, you suggest one software, they say it's because somebody suggested one software that uses that they now, compromise the system. So let the professionals and the experts handle that. Yeah.
Thank you. So yes, with that, we've sort of come to the end of this Q&A. We have 5 extra minutes, but I want to use this opportunity to say thank you very much to our amazing panel. It was very short, but very, very interesting. I really, really love this conversation, and it's something that we definitely should think about, even as our organizations, transition, or as we do business, in an ever-evolving state of doing business in a technology-based environment. So thank you very much for some of these insights. I think they were quite profound and useful. So I think that answer, Grace, was answered in the course of the session, talked about, of course, our current data protection laws and global protection laws as well. Yes, the recording will be made available, definitely. And I cannot but appreciate Endurance and Rex and the team that have made this, the tech part of this possible. We are just sitting here having the conversations, but they are the ones that are putting the plug and plays together. So we appreciate you. Thank you very much. Yeah, so we have just a very short, I think we have like 2 minutes more. I see my chair. I cannot but recognize you again, sir. I don't know if you would love to say something, but if not, possibly we've come to the end of this session. I'm just really, really happy that this happened, and we are very, very grateful on behalf of the Corporate Governance and Compliance Committee of the NBA-SBL to you. We appreciate the leadership of the NBA-SBL, the committee. We are very, very grateful for the opportunity to be able to host this very unique business law weekly, episode 33, proudly. So we are looking forward. Definitely, please go to the website. You'll be able to catch up on all the recordings to all the sessions. I'm very, very sure you'll be able to get access to it. And I can see that some of our panelists are actually answering the questions live. So thank you once again for that. So very, 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 very grateful. Thank you. And without further ado, I think that brings this session to a close. Thank you, my chair. Definitely would love to hear from you before we go. just say something, definitely, before we go. I think you're muted, ma'am.
Okay, just to say a very big thank you. Very insightful. I've learned a lot. And, I think one of the my big takeaways is that, as companies, we do need to do that analysis of what our needs are and how we can use technology to make ourselves a lot more efficient and drive change within the organization, and sustainable change as well, to the benefit of our shareholders. I know for us, being able to monitor our assets in the Niger Delta real time, using technology, using things like robotics and virtual imaging and virtual reality, is really, really it's something that we are, as an organization, have been looking into. So it's going to be different for every business. right? And, you know, like was mentioned, it's going to be also a gradual and a graduated change. However, we have to start the journey, right? They say the journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. And so it's just taking that first step. And I want to thank everybody that has joined this call for the last hour and been a part of it. And obviously our speakers, fantastic. I'm just so encouraged to just see the level of scholarship within the legal profession in Nigeria. And honestly, I'm really impressed. And so thank you again. Thank you, Rosamond. You do an excellent job over and over again. I recognize our chair. Thank you for joining us. I know you had a conflict earlier on, but thank you so much. It's very encouraging to see you. Thank you to the NBA Secretariat, Mr. Endurance, the oil that keeps the cogs of the wheel rolling.
Thank you so much for your very kind words.
So
Thanks a lot.
Thank
you, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. And please join the next business weekly session. Let's learn and keep learning because that's what makes us lawyers, right? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you. Such a pleasure. I also see comments from Dr. Adefulu. Thank you very much for your compliments. And we definitely are very excited. We definitely love your leadership and we're excited to have this session. So that brings us to the end of Business Law Weekly. And thank you very much. And definitely looking forward to seeing you in the next one. And we send our regards from the Corporate Governance Committee of the NBA-SBL. Please have a very fantastic day and wishing you all the best in your endeavors. Have a very good evening, everyone. And bye from this end. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.